Japanese people of Reddit, what are things you don't get about Western people? My uncle's wife is Japanese. She says she doesn't understand why people litter over there. They carry their rubbish around until they find a bin or eat near a bin so they can bin it right away. As an American, I don't understand why people litter either, except their buttholes. Wearing shoes inside, what the frick? To be fair, that's a 50/50 thing in America. You never go into someone's home and assume you can wear your shoes. My favorite statement by a Japanese student studying in Boston is, everybody gay here? My co-captain for my high school soccer team was from Japan. We became very close friends over all the road trips we took. Spent 4 years with him, and the last thing he said to me before leaving back to Japan was, "I'm still getting used to all these blonde people. Weird." I had super blonde hair as a kid. I still remember being at Disney World one year and all of the Japanese tourists kept touching my head or trying to take photos with me, even if it was with my back turned. Not Japanese, but my wife grew up in Japan. They don't do sarcasm at all, and they don't understand it if you do. It can create some weird moments. That's always weird in anime. Instead of saying something in a sarcastic tone, sometimes a character will just deadpan make a statement and then add on, "is what I would say, but it's not true," or something like that. Always weirded out that strangers will talk to you overseas, join your conversation or chat in line, in an elevator, etc. Very fond of hugging and touching more than in Japan too. Not saying it's bad, just hard to get used to. I find this very surprising because when my wife and I visited Tokyo, we actually got talked to by strangers a lot. I think part of it might be confirmation bias. If you're a tourist in any country, you're probably in more fun places where people feel chattier and happier, versus at work or on transportation where it's all quiet and everybody is zoned out or focused on their own stuff. How are you guys so hairy? I blame my barbarian ancestors. Not Japanese, but my girlfriend is. Her most common complaint, why everyone seems so loud in public. That's something that would kinda irk me as well. I visited Japan back in the early 90s and I remember everyone thinking my driving license was strange because it was one little card that had my hair and eye color on it. Theirs was some complicated book. It never occurred to me that in Japan, hair and eye color isn't especially useful information for identifying an individual. In Japan, hair and eye color isn't especially useful information for identifying an individual. Well, if someone has bright orange spiky hair and purple eyes, they are usually the main character. My experience in Canada as a Japanese student, public transit seems always off schedule. A lot of products try and rip you off. Not saying they don't in Japan, but it's pretty obvious when you're not getting what you think you're getting. Hidden costs everywhere. Cell phone carriers outright say when you're going to charge you for over data limit by texting you saying your data limit is reached. Additional data will cost yen per megabyte. Here, I don't even get a reminder when I'm over my limit. Taxes not included in prices. WTF. Everything is overpriced. Going out for lunch? That'll be $10 minimum for any decent meal. You can get a proper meal for $500 instead of some fast food junk. No healthy alternatives easily available. Yeah, I am sure I can find healthy food around if I look hard enough, but I won't be finding salads and rice balls and anything even remotely healthy in a convenience store. Customer service here is a joke. I can't get anywhere with customer service. I had a broken laptop from Japan that was insured internationally while in Canada, and it was resolved faster by sending it to Japan, getting it fixed, then shipped back than to get the issue acknowledged by the branch in Canada. It's allowed in Japan to drink in public. I'm Canada, it's not. Okay, I'm fine with these differences, but an issue I have with drinking here is how it feels like a bad thing I'm doing by drinking. For example, you have to go to the cold and clinical feeling LCBO or the beer store to pick up drinks. Even at an event, the drinking seems so restrictive by having zones for the drinking people. It feels like I'm doing something horrible whenever I drink. It's no fun. Was visiting Tokyo. Some young kid in a minivan used his fingers to open his eyes wider, obviously mocking my eyes. It was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. To that little kid out there, if you read this, keep up the good work. Someone did squint eyes to an Asian kid at my school once and he did the opposite back. The whole class, including the teacher, who was about to scold the other kid, freaking lost it. Dude became a legend. By this thread I guess I want to ask Japanese people why they curse that much. I dated a Japanese girl in college who was in her first year studying in America. I taught her swear words without emphasizing that it was impolite to use them in public. Then I taught her to snowboard. She spent the day tumbling down the mountain unleashing an extremely loud and high-pitched chain of profanity. Greeting people with hugs, even if you're only acquaintances. Please don't touch me. My father is from Japan, and when we went to visit his brother in Tokyo, my dad casually gave him a hug and he laughed and said, "You really are an American now." Violence is okay to be portrayed, but as soon as too much boob is shown, people go nuts. I'd rather have less violence and more boob. I'm half, but have spent time in both the US and Japan. Weird things about Americans from my Japanese perspective. Bringing in cake to school or the office to celebrate your own birthday, or just making any huge fuss over your own birthday, is weird. Returning something you borrow without putting it in a bag, like even a recycled Trader Joe's paper bag is fine, is a bit impolite, and you obviously wouldn't return it in worse condition. There are people who are reluctant to take a shower or wash their hair every day. Eventually I learned more about different natural oils that are good for you and different people having different needs and shampoo stripping that away blah blah blah, but what you don't want to take a bath because you don't feel like it, not me, but my mom thinks it's really weird Americans don't know their own blood type. She said it's like not knowing your own name, but honestly no one has ever asked me my blood type except other Japanese people. It's kind of like asking someone's horoscope or Myers-Briggs thingy. Weird things about Japanese from my American perspective. I don't know if it's just Tokyo, but seems like infidelity is rampant before and after marriage. And the general mentality is kind of like, oh well it sucks but what can you do? Dude, you will get the cops called on you in the US for that. I'm completely American, but I work at a Japanese company, so the office is half American and half Japanese. I've asked co-workers about this. One person mentioned in Japan they often use a bunch of small dishes to each hold a small thing they're eating. So one small dish for rice, one small dish for meat, one small dish for each vegetable. They eat a little bit of a bunch of foods, instead of one big dish with one or two foods only on it. Many of the Japanese people I work with each have to wash out a minimum of 3 or 4 tiny Tupperwares at the end of lunch break. So when they arrive in the States they find the concept of a dinner plate to be weird. We just slop everything they're eating on one big plate with no separation. Foods who have no business mixing together are touching each other. It doesn't bother me since I grew up with it, but I totally see the argument. Also, one Japanese guy pointed out that it's wild that we devote so much space in the grocery store to mac and cheese. At a regular American grocery store there are easily 50 different options for mac and cheese. Some vary by the shape of the pasta, some have different types of cheeses involved, some use liquid cheese sauce, whereas some use a powder that you mix with butter and milk, and each of those main varieties has many brand name and generic options. I'm from Kobe, Japan and I'm 16. I've experienced different cultures and lifestyles, but I always wonder so many things. Why is littering so common? It feels like garbage is everywhere. Why are street lights so quick? Depends on some places, but in Germany it's like absurd how quick the light changes. Not having bathtubs confuse me often. Like I can't find public baths like ones in Japan, or even in the rooms. Sometimes the shower and bath is combined, which is kind of uncomfortable. Why shoes inside houses or rooms? It's so disgusting. I suspect the reason Japanese streetlights are longer is because there's a lot more pedestrians that need to cross than in most other Western countries. I also noticed that people can cross intersections diagonally there, whereas you can't in most places in the US. Why does just about every sushi in America have the seaweed wrapped inside the sushi instead of the outside? I'm literally grabbing rice. It's called in Japanese, although many flavor combinations, like California rolls, were created to purposely fit Western tastes. Rolling rice on the outside is Japanese in origin. The reason it's popular in the States is because not many Americans like the texture of seaweed and having it on the inside reduces it, or that was the initial reason among pioneering sushi chefs in the States. Dude, Japan is asleep. It's 9:25 p.m. though. You have been visited by the doggo of curiosity. Good knowledge and secrets will come to you, but only if you comment, "Tell me more, Papa. Tell me more, Papa." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.